No, I was just gonna say, I think uh, it's more of a matter of motivation, in my view, why somebody may choose to eat an animal-based diet as opposed to a vegan one in virtue of like maybe some like nominal ability to build some more muscle mass. I think if you or your sister had to choose between consuming human beings for the sake of like getting a quote unquote optimal muscle mass or plants, for example, um, you'd make the reasonable choice. So there are things like convenience and ability to access some of these foods, of course, but I think the more overarching motivation is um, not concerned with morality in any sense. You're not concerned with the lives of or interests of these animals any more than in regards to their welfare and how they're raised, etc. I am presuming correctly, right, Hathaway, if you had to eat like human babies to gain optimal muscle mass, you probably wouldn't do that.
Like now you're kind of getting like I don't know if we can have a discussion if you're going to go like this. This is just crazy. Pifox is I think a bit more reasonable in his rhetoric because like that's obviously a bit
To assume
crazy.
you
Like
wouldn't eat
I
human
could
babies is crazy. Am I assuming wrong?
Well, I feel like we're not quite
Excuse me,
there. So
Pifox. Excuse me,
if we
Pifox.
wanted to make that argument,
Excuse me.
I don't
I
think
just I
like
just
with
want to I
Hathaway
just
with
want to
what he would.
clarify if my presumption is correct or not. Like you wouldn't eat human babies, right?
yeah, I think that would be a bit excessive. Yeah.
What's crazy about me assuming that?
What?
Yeah, you're saying like I'm
What?
like
Okay, so
excuse me, Pifox. I'm speaking. You're suggesting that there's something crazy about me presuming that you wouldn't eat babies if you had to do it for gaining muscle mass. What's crazy about that?
Yeah, like I'm because human babies mean a lot more to me than animal babies or animal life, right?
In virtue of what? What's different about human life and animal life such that you wouldn't consume human beings for an nominal amount of muscle gain, but you would animal babies?
When we're talking about like animal life, like we're talking about are you the type that's going like just full board? We have to like stop other animals from eating animals. Are you going that far?
Yeah. Shoot a lion if it's
Okay,
facing
that's
down at you.
impossible.
No, we have guns.
Impossible.
Lions have brain stems.
We're-
You shoot them. But anyways, let's ground
So you're gonna
ourselves.
kill lions because they're eating animals?
Let's ground ourselves really quick. What is it about the human baby and the animal baby that makes it okay to eat the animal baby for muscle gain, but not the human baby?
Well, you were a baby once, and you were able to get this kind of thinking together to be able to help out animals. But animals don't have the ability to kind of think of themselves and think, "Oh my God, this is so terrible. We're killing each other as we're all animals. We got to stop this." Like an animal wouldn't be able to conceive of that, but a human could,
Mhm.
right?
uh, we would call this like moral agency, to my knowledge, and it seems that there are some humans who lack this moral agency. If this is where you would want to draw the line at like what's okay to eat, would you accept that human beings who say aren't intelligent enough or might have mental illnesses such that they don't care about other people, or they might care about other people but not might not be able to understand that they're harming other people by their actions, that we are allowed to eat them just because they don't have this moral agency?
I've spoken to a lot of handicapped people, and they're pretty moral because
Well,
they
I'm not saying the vast majority, but there will be some instances where somebody might either one lack the capacity to fully understand everything that's going on around them, or they might be in a situation where they don't feel empathy, at least for the vast majority of times around other people.
well, if you start to, let's say, eat handicapped people, then you're also going to increase the likelihood of eating, healthy non-handicapped people. So that's the problem why it would still be immoral to eat a handicapped person because they're still a
But
person.
It's not inherently
you're saying with the
immoral
slippery
to,
slope.
but it's
Well,
immoral
No, I
because
said
it's
it
when it
is.
leads to
I said
eating
it
other
is
people.
immoral. I said it is
well.
immoral because it'll. Yeah.
Let's take a hypothetical world because that That's saying that the consequences. What I'm more curious about, if there's no consequences that harm other moral agents, would you say that, like, say for example, someone is a sociopath or whatever, and they don't feel as much empathy for other human beings, or they might be not have this sensation of moral duty. If this person, and we know for a fact that it's not going to trickle down and harm other people in this hypothetical scenario, would you be okay for eating them just to gain more muscle
So you're
mass?
talking about eating, let's say, like lab-grown meat that is
No, I'm
technically human
talking about
flesh.
humans who are born without moral agency. And in this hypothetical, we have some way of preventing them or preventing the spread from these agents to moral agents, right? So we don't have to worry about it encouraging people to eat
I mean,
other
I would
humans who
eat
aren't at
human
this cost,
flesh
right?
in
We
an
can
event of,
guarantee.
like, for instance, I was stranded and many people have
Well, I want to
died.
be very clear
Hmm.
about the hypothetical. You have no need to, all right? The only thing you're doing it for is to gain more muscle
Yeah, I
mass
wouldn't do that.
easily. So then the question still remains is, if it's not moral agency that draws this trait, what is necessarily the trait where you think it's okay to eat animals
Because
just for
animals
muscle mass?
eat other
That's the
animals,
moral
right?
agency thing that I brought up with you, right? It's because they're not moral agents. I can imagine a
But they're
human
not
who
human.
might be born. So you would say that moral agency is the definition of human. So if I took a human being off the street, right, and then I changed, the only thing I changed is their moral agency up to that point, you would be okay with
No,
eating them.
because they're on Team Human. You know, anybody on Team
Right?
Human, I
So if
can't
you're
eat.
saying that moral agency is the definition of human, they would cease to be human in this scenario.
Well, they'd still be genetically human, right?
So are we? Because are we saying that both apply to it, or are we saying that there's a whole new different trait that we're concerned about, this genetic similarity?
Well, I mean, this is all your argumentation. Like mine would be that if somebody is genetically human, I'm not going to eat them because that would set a dangerous
Okay.
precedent. And if it
I wanted to
even if it
clarify
even
that
if it
because
wouldn't,
originally you said it.
I still would be worried that of like say the hypothetical where it's like there's a really no potential possibility, like as far as we know. Um, that's still a
Mhm.
case like I wouldn't be interested in doing it because, like, for instance, unless I had to in a survival situation, because there's like instances of people who have, you know, been put in a scientific experimentation where they have been told by the scientists, like, look, you know, this experiment will have no effect on you whatsoever. There's no way that anybody's going to like learn about how this is, you know, what you've chosen in this experiment is going to ever come back on you. It's never your decisions here will never come back on anybody else. And people still, you know, chose to take a careful approach. Like they chose not to do um, just go willy nilly because like people always have predispositions about things. You can't change it. It's just the way they are. They'll always be worried about potential outcomes. Even if somebody says like there's just no possibility, like there always kind of is.
Well, I'm just saying because the point of what I'm trying to get at is what's the point where we find it immoral, right? So I try and presuppose these like it's not going to incur on other people. So I'm not really concerned if there's a hypothetical scenario in which you would be okay with eating humans. What I'm more curious about is, does the principle apply in all scenarios? When you say originally with the moral agency, that's why I brought up the example of the moral. If we had a human who didn't have this moral agency, would you be okay to eat them, right? So it sounds like we're switching over now to genetic, where we're saying the trait that we care about that makes you morally relevant is your genetics. If you're genetically similar to a human, am I mistaken in that, or?
Absolutely. Anything even humanoid, I would be unwilling to eat. Even if it's a sentient
Okay.
form of life that I can communicate with, is a kind of a higher form of life. I'm not going to eat their flesh. That's fucked.
So my question I might ask is, say we have a being whose DNA is almost completely dissimilar to humans, right? Say they're an eight-legged spider that's like 2 stories tall, right? But their consciousness and awareness is, say, twice that of a human. Would you say that this person is acceptable to eat because of genetic difference? Or because it sounded
Mm,
like,
that would be immoral. Like because like for instance, if I was to eat them, then like maybe their people would take it as a grave insult, and then there might
right?
be a
So
war start over that,
I
or
guess my
you
question I
know,
might ask, because it almost sounds like you're referring to, in that sense, like a contractarian, where like you only care about it insofar as that species could start attacking you. Is that
yeah,
the case, or do you care about
that's
this being in
absolutely it.
itself?
Yeah, like if somebody is potential. If there's also a social aspect, like where these things are not actually human, but maybe diplomatically, or
if I
like
presuppose that there is no society, there's no repercussions, would you still eat this being?
no, I don't think so, because it's still
So
sentient.
then,
So like that's just not okay. Like because
so
it's a
then it
sentient being.
seems like
Like for instance, I wouldn't want. I don't even want to eat dolphin. Like if somebody was like, here's some dolphin. Do you want to have some of this dolphin with me? I'm like, no, that's a dolphin. Like that's a pretty intelligent being. Again, I would
wait,
eat dolphin if I had to, but I would not.
are
I
you
would not
talking
just
about sapience or sentience?
sentience. So like an
Okay.
animal is intelligent enough to kind of really, um, kind of have empathy and higher values
Well,
of
the reason
thinking. Then I'm not going
trying
to
to
eat
be
that.
exact is the technical term for sentience would include all living beings. Because sentience
Kind
is
of, but we're talking
you
about
have the
higher
ability
levels
to
of think.
suffer and have qualia. So if you're
But
talking about
we're talking about
like
higher
sapience, it
levels,
would
though.
be more like able to react in a way like similar to humans, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So with this sapience trait, I guess my question is we could then take a theoretical human who lacks this sapience, who will never get this sapience, who has no sapient parents, right? But they're genetically almost the same as us. It's just a birth defect. Would you eat this person?
And they're the same in
So
sentience or
they're
sapience. They're
they're
basically the
born
same or
out of a
something
tube.
close.
They're born out of a tube with the same DNA, but they have a birth defect such that they're no longer sapient. They have sentience. They can suffer. They can have likes and dislikes, but they lack the ability of language and they lack the ability of like higher order thinking.
But can they? I mean, like, well, dolphins lack the ability of higher order thinking.
Is there
Like
a
what?
specific? Because that might be where I'm getting hung up on. Is the thing I would want to ask more about, right? Like when I say higher order thinking, there's multiple different things we point to, like meta language, like asking questions about things, or like metacognition, like why do I think this thing? I guess when I say like higher level, um, I guess higher levels understanding, I guess I'm referring to like these higher order of being able to understand things. So I know like dolphins may not be capable of like meta language, but they're probably capable of say like object permanence or capable of self awareness potentially. I'm not. Let me double
Well,
check myself, Martin.
dolphins, when like dolphins or whales as well. Like when you are going to interact with a dolphin or whale, um, except for maybe like a killer whale, because they're kind of fucked up, fairly violent, but like a lot more than other types of whales or porpoises. But like most dolphins and whales will be like fairly cool around humans. They're not going to attack anybody just out of the blue. They don't do that. They don't act like that. They see a human, they're like, okay, this is interesting. I'm going to kind of figure out what this thing is. What is that? It's interesting. They don't seem to be, they're clearly not threatening to me, and they don't look like they could be threatening. They have that kind of innocence and that kind of just this spark of like, um, kind of innocence and the kind of a creative mind. I'm not going to eat anything like that. Fuck that.
Well, so it sounds like I guess the creative mind might want to question, but on the like innocence part, there are known instances where and I'm trying to pull it up here. I'm just going from memory with this. There are have been instances where dolphins have done anything from murdering or even like R-wording actual humans. Like there's an incident where a woman was around a dolphin tried to do stuff to her. Right? Like
Very rare. That doesn't happen too often. Like for instance, with sharks, sharks will attack humans way more often than dolphins. So I would be willing to eat some shark flesh.
yeah. Well, I know they don't normally attack humans. How often do dolphins? But then that's question again. That seems to be moral agency. We seem to loop back around to that. We already talked about how moral agency doesn't seem to be the trait that we care about. Or do you want to go back to moral agency or?
Yeah, sure.
So then my question, if I have a hypothetical human who's just born without moral agency, and you know for a fact that it's not going to have any repercussions on you or any other moral agents, are you good to kill this person for more muscle mass?
Without moral agency?
Yeah, so they don't have like they don't go out of their way to harm other people. They're not like a maximally evil agent, but they don't have the idea of like, oh, this other person can suffer. I don't want to hurt them, right? So like I can imagine like say a mentally ill individual who just doesn't get these, right? And
Would it still look like a
yes,
human though?
they're other than this, they're identical to human.
Yeah, I can't eat anything that looks like a human, man. That's
So
fucked.
Are we saying that there's multiple traits, or are we saying because
Even if it's just bipedal and it's kind of
wait,
looking like a
so
human, I
the
wouldn't
thing
want to eat
I
it.
the thing I'm confused by is I guess what we're trying to ask more is get a good description of what you do and do not care about, right? And then just taking reductios to see if this is actually the case, right?
Yeah,
So is it just moral agency, or is it moral agency, genetic similarity, and higher order thinking, or what's the list of traits?
there's a
I guess.
yeah higher order thinking. Similar, look similar.
All
It
right.
it it is
Moral agency,
also
higher
it
order
show it
thinking.
shows it also could just show a lot of like indifference, or like largely indifference or largely non-threatening behavior towards humans, and I mean, I guess it's still kind of higher order thinking, but
Well, that's a
yeah,
little bit
looks.
different. So the indifference would just be like
But
non-maliciousness. That
yeah,
would
no,
be a
it
little
would
bit
have to
different
be
than the
like
other traits.
reasonably intelligent. Like it has to be. If I can admire it, then I'm not going to eat it, because it would be like destroying. Like, I wouldn't want to eat a butterfly because it's beautiful, right? Like it's too beautiful to kill. Um,
So I
or even
guess
even a fish that's like really beautiful. I'm not sure I would eat other fish before I'd eat that fish, right?
okay. So you're gonna say if it has moral agency or higher order thinking or similar looking or non-malicious or admirable, if it has any one of these traits, would you say it's morally relevant, or is there a mix between them? Or
Yeah, like it's a number of things, but if it has this value that I can derive from it, then I'm not going to eat it. Like no way. Or I'm going to eat something else before I would eat it. Like if it was like this
wait,
kind of
so
beautiful fish,
I guess that's
beautiful
the thing that
animal.
we're asking is we know that there are certain things you will and will not value. I guess I'm trying to pin down more of like what are the things you value. So the reason like why I want to pin this down, this moral agency, higher order thinking, similar looking, non-malicious, admirable, the relation between all these traits is that'll give me a good picture of like at least what you believe the things you care about are.
Like definitely, yeah. Like eating animals is something that should never be taken lightly. I mean, if I was to like, I'm looking to become a hunter soon because it saves huge amounts of money. Like I'll be hunting.
Regardless
Yeah,
of the money, with
yeah.
this, what I'd be curious about with the non-malicious nature, most animals are non-malicious in nature. So, like for example, cows aren't going to go out of their way to just kill humans because they feel like it. Similar
Well, that's because
to,
they've been domesticated, but
well, not even
will
just
kill humans at
moose.
the highest rate.
There
Moose
will
at the
be
highest rates.
some, like for example, wild pigs will probably be it, but like even deer, for example, they don't go out of their way to purposely harm humans. Even moose don't purposely go out of their way. They're just easily threatened, right? They feel threatened very easily. But most of these species are non-malicious in nature. Would you say it's immoral to kill these species? It's like you can kill a hog, but you can't kill, say, a moose or a deer.
Um, well, the problem with that is now like deer is like very good meat. Like the meat is very good for you. Hog
Well,
is a lot fattier tissue.
if there's a being that you have values, like take for a human, right? Just because it's healthy to you doesn't remove their value, right? Would you agree
No, I
with
mean,
that?
that's why lots of
Yeah.
hunters will,
So,
once they start hunting, they will just like, they won't want to kill the animal. They'll actually go out with the intent of hunting an animal, and they'll say, you know what? I'm just going to look at this animal's beauty. I don't want to hunt it today.
yeah.
It's
But
too beautiful
most of the
for me to
time,
kill
the
today.
main goal of hunting is to get food, right? That's normally
Yeah.
what a lot of hunting is, or to get a trophy. So, like with this non-malicious trait, it seems incompatible to hunt like deer or moose with this trait. I don't see how it
Well,
is the
deers aren't
case.
like really intelligent. Like they are definitely have this majestic quality to them,
Well, I'm
and
saying just about the non-malicious trait, right?
yeah,
If we want to,
that's only in combination with others. It's not exactly a
so my
standalone.
question, like with all of these, that's why I wanted to clarify: is it like an or statement between all of these, or an and statement? Because they do contain a non-malicious trait. Is it the case that they need to be like they need to have a certain number of these traits for you to value them, or
It could be either one. I was trying to put together a list of just so
oh,
maybe let's take out the non-malicious, but every other one of those, if it
okay,
has one of those, then that's a non sequitur. It's a non-starter. We can't do that.
okay? So then my question, like, let's see. I could even take like a pug, for example, who doesn't have, say, higher order thinking. He doesn't have moral agency. He doesn't look similar to us. And I mean, maybe we could say he's admirable in one sense because he looks terrible. But like, I could imagine a not great looking pug. Would you eat? Would you eat this pug?
Well, the pug is also these animals are like useful to humans, or they have served humans. Like I don't like the idea of eating horse as well, because horses have been very useful to humans. So I would really have to
Wait,
be
what do we
pretty
mean by
hungry.
useful? Because cows are useful to us, but
More
that
useful
that
is like,
immediately keeps us from killing them. It's like you mean useful outside the purpose of just eating them.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll add that into here. Useful excluding eating them. So we got moral agency, higher order thinking, similar looking, admirable, useful excluding eating them. Um, higher order thinking, moral agency. I guess my question I might want to ask is, with a lot of these items, are you willing to say that? I guess my question for a lot of these, with a lot of moral philosophy, there's, I guess, a bent towards significance, right? So I can pretty much justify any action if I give an infinite number of reasons and explanations and infinitely complex. There's a sort of minimalism that a lot of philosophers will take towards moral beliefs. Would you disagree that's a good idea, or?
That's obviously very fair. I mean, like I was going to say, like eating animals should never be taken lightly. It's definitely something that you should do very respectably. You should always do it very cautiously. You should make as much use of the animal as possible so that you do
Right.
not waste the
So they
animal.
do have moral value then. So like animals, even if they don't hold these traits, they still have some moral value,
Of course,
right? So like,
they all
yeah.
have to. They all have to, because it's, there's only so many of them. They are an aspect of nature which we have to admire. We admire almost everything in nature. And so
Well,
every animal has attributable moral value, but the moral value is in conflict with its usefulness as meat, basically.
wait.
And then we
So I guess
then
the
we
only value, because
derive.
that's instrumental value, right? So like when I say moral value, there's some things that it's not just out of their instrumental value to me, but like I can't, for example, go out and just kill a deer and then leave it on the side of the road because I'm not respecting it, right? I can't just do whatever I want. They're not objects because they're still moral. They're still morally relevant.
Well, they're a
Would
life
you?
form, though. They're a form of life, right?
Yeah. My question I just want to ask and what I
Yeah.
want to clarify, because when we do like this is the name the trait and asking like what traits make them particularly matter to you. One of the things I get hung up on is normally in most scenarios, normally it's sentience that most people still hold some moral value, right? So like it might be different the levels of value that we have for these beings, but like you wouldn't take like even the cows that you eat right now, you wouldn't be okay with taking a baseball bat to their knees just because you feel like it.
No, that's fucked.
Yeah. So we would say
Fuck
that
that.
yeah. So we would say that they still have moral value. I guess my question is why is it the case that we don't hold the same like category of moral value? So like I can see and I think I'm inclined to agree that like I prefer human well-being over most animals, right? I would wholesale accept that for multiple
Yeah.
reasons like moral agency, fairly similarly. But the reason why I'm vegan is it seems like a question of level as opposed to category, right? So like the same things that are moral to do to humans are moral to do to animals. It's just the degree in which it's immoral, right? So it's not as immoral to harm a dog than it is a human, but it's still immoral. My question is, Lee, like, is there a particular reason why you think it's not
Well,
a
I wouldn't say so far as it's, like the dog. Yeah. Like a deer. I'm not going to feel like bad killing a deer. So I
well,
guess you could say that's kind of sociopathic,
my
in
question,
a
like,
sense.
do you derive like there's multiple theories of moral truth that I might want to clarify here. Do you say that like when you say it's wrong to murder someone, are you saying that as a propositional fact, like it's true or false, or are you saying that in like boo murdering people?
I'm saying that if you're living in a society where you just kind of go around and you just murder stuff for the fun of it, because we can see with psychopaths, they will begin, squishing insects,
Well, the reason
spiders,
I'm
then they'll
asking,
upgrade to cats, then humans, or like it's a ladder that you climb You don't
The
kill anything
reason,
for the pleasure of
wait,
it. That's fucked.
wait. So the thing that I want to clarify here, I wasn't trying to clarify. I was trying to clarify whether there's clear propositions for these things. So like when you said like I don't value, like I just don't care about deer. The thing I wanted to clarify
I mean,
there,
yeah, like it's like yeah, like you're fishing the truth out of it from me,
yeah.
but
Well, like
like I
because
definitely I have to hunt. Like is what I mean to say. Like I
there's
have to hunt because it's just intrinsically going to be better
regardless
for
of the
my life if I do.
requirement, I want to clarify, like, on the level of moral value. I want to clarify this. And the reason I was clarifying there is there's two different moral theories that I run into. One is like propositional in nature, truth apt moral language, or non truth apt moral language. It's the idea like the emotivist would just say, I'm not saying it's true that you ought not kill. I'm just saying boo murder. Right. So if I say something different in the future, I'm not being contradictory. That's what I wanted to clarify because sometimes I can run into individuals who will say that. Um, was more curious about like with the moral value. I guess my question I still wanted to know is like, what's the difference in category between like the, I guess the moral relevancy of humans as opposed to animals, right? Because if we say that it's like just I care about animals less, that's something that I can agree with, right? But that also means that it's wrong to kill animals unnecessarily, right?
Yeah,
That
absolutely. Well,
includes
I'm not unnecessarily killing animals. I'm poor,
okay,
and if I was to not kill animals like deer, then I would remain poor and poor as if
well,
I
for the
killed a
muscle
deer.
mass example, though, is what I want to know. Is because that would still be the same. It'd be a category of immorality. If it's in the same category, and because you wouldn't accept, say, working out, for example, right, to help humans, to eat humans for more muscle mass, then it seems if it's in the same category of morals, then it's the case that you would treat animals the same. It just wouldn't be as bad as eating a human. Do you see where I'm trying to clarify here? Because if it's the same category, I can stay fairly agnostic because I don't know. I don't see your budget. I'm not gonna like sit here and like try and tell you that you're just wrong, right? Because I don't know your local area what budget. But I'm more curious about like with the working out for muscle mass. In that example, if it is animals have the same category of moral importance, then it is the case that it's immoral to kill them for eating just for muscle mass. Because it'd be immoral to do it to humans, right? It'd just be less immoral than if you were to eat a human. Do you see where I'm getting at?
Um, I mean, like I'm not a pacifist, so if
But
somebody tried to attack me, I would kill them if
that's
they
a
were
very different
attacking
thing.
me.
I'm talking about you want muscle mass. So like the claim with what you did talked about with your sister that she wasn't able to get the same muscle mass that she wanted, right?
Well, that was her.
It's
With me, it's a bit different. Like for me, I'm looking to actually
okay.
subsist. Like, 'cause if
Well,
I don't have this year, then I have to pay for because things are very tight now. I'm very poor, and if I'm looking to save money to kind of put the money where I need to put it, and I can't like shoot and kill or shoot and like acquire like a ton of beans, but I can shoot and acquire a ton of meat, and
yeah,
I only need to use like a one bullet to do it, right?
yeah. That's the thing that I because again I don't have your book sheets in front of me. I don't know your exact location and what stores you have
I live in
next to you.
Canada.
I can generalize, but that's never. Do you want to give me the region? I
I
guess
live
so I
in
can start
Manitoba.
researching prices. Manitoba, Canada. Uh, Pricing. Let's see if I can find anything on this because normally it is sometimes a little difficult to find like general prices. And market price, Providence of Manitoba. I guess my question, because it sounded like before that you accepted that as a reason why someone shouldn't be vegan, just because they can't get the muscle amounts that they originally wanted. That was what I was more curious about, like with your sister. Are you just saying that that's like an effect, but it's irrelevant to like veganism, or like it is the case that you would care about that if in your older age you had difficulty getting the muscle mass that you wanted?
Yeah, that seems to be the case with her.